everybody, and welcome to my March reading wrap up. Happy Easter. So, the first book that I read in the month of March was via audiobook through Spotify. I have Spotify Premium, so I just listened to the audiobooks on there. And it was Artificial Wisdom. I gave this a 5 stars. I normally read YA and fantasy books, so this was definitely outside my comfort zone, which is what I'm trying to get more into, is stuff I normally don't read. If you have not read this book, you need to go read it immediately. I'm not just saying that as in, oh, I really like this book, you should read it too. No, with the way that the world is going in artificial intelligence, you should read this book. Especially when you think about how a few years ago there was the whole Will Smith eating a bowl of spaghetti AI thing. It was weird and it did not look good. AI technology is developing very quickly. Unless you know what to look for, sometimes you think it's an actual picture, which is just insane to me. It deals with journalism and telling the truth, struggling to tell the truth, the consequences of telling the truth, what happens if they lie. It deals with the police. It deals with electing the first worldwide dictator. It deals with murder, political corruption, psychological warfare. There is so much packed into one book, and it's a lot to digest. To be honest, if I had a physical copy, I would not be done with it by now. There is so much going on. There's so much that you have to keep track of. There's so many twists and turns, especially at the end. For me personally, listening to it via audio was a lifesaver and made it to where I could actually get through it. I especially feel bad for Marcus Tully, who's the main character. He's a journalist. He's the one that's reporting on the ecological disaster that happens at the very, very beginning of the book. He's the one that's dealing with the artificial intelligent being that's running in this election to be the world's first dictator that his friend created for that specific purpose. It's so much. I honestly cried towards the end when Marcus Tully learned something. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about towards the end. And even though I expected the twist at the end, I was still surprised and struck emotionally. 5 star read, absolutely go read it. Next up is a book that I'm reading for a book club with some girls that I know from New Mexico. It is my first Sarah J. Maas book, Crescent City House of Earth and Blood. As you can tell, we're not super far into it. We're like 10 chapters in. And everybody's telling me we're reading this wrong, and I don't know what to do. If you have any suggestions on how to read the Sarah J. Maas books, please tell me. Please let me know. There are so many books. I have this one. I have the entire Court of Thorns and Rose series, and I have the Throne of Glass book. I don't have the series, but I do have the first book. There's a lot of world building in these first 10 chapters, and within the first 10 chapters, there's also a 2 year time span that we don't see a whole lot. And it feels like there's world building, but it's like, yeah, here's some world building, but you should know most of it, is the way that it comes across. So I don't know if that's because this is a lot of stuff that's mentioned in the other books, or if that's just the way that she writes. Either way, justice for Danica. I am so mad. Like, there was no reason to do her like that. I do not need to be crying within the first 10 chapters of a book, ever. So thank you, Sarah J. Maas. Lastly is another book that I'm reading for a book club, and by book club, I mean a book that I'm reading with my boyfriend. First Lie Wins. When I tell you I was obsessed by page 13. Oh my god. I don't know if she works for the government, if this is just some random dude. His name is Mr. Smith, which I'm pretty sure is not his actual name. It can't be. It's so generic, it's so boring, and he's so secretive. He has a thing that changes his voice on the phone. Nobody's ever met him in person. Like, Mr. Smith has to be fake. The whole doppelganger showing up at the freaking Derby. Oh my god. This book takes place in Louisiana, which I absolutely love. The author does a really great job describing the scenery, using the correct terminology, the way that people behave. It's you can very much tell, like, even before it states that this is in Louisiana, you can very much tell that this is a book that takes place in the South. And I love it. I personally have never been to Louisiana, but I know people who live in Louisiana currently. I know people up here who used to live in Louisiana or have at least visited. And based off of what they've told me, this is very accurate to Louisiana. It also takes place in modern day, and I really like the stuff that they mentioned that is modern day, like Throwback Thursday, talking about stalking people on Facebook. And it's very accurate to like what it would be like to be a secret agent in today's world. And all of the stuff that they have to do to create her identity online to make sure that if anybody looks her up, it's all completely accurate to who she's pretending to be is amazing. And the whole dinner scene with the doppelganger and James, I don't think James is involved in any of this. I think he's just an unfortunate casualty of a person and just his circumstances. Her showing up at the dinner party and then the main character just calling her out, Evie just calling her out. I was expecting it, but I was like, oh my god. I was expecting the absolute worst to happen. Thankfully, nothing did. Except for the fact that the doppelganger immediately gets into a car accident after leaving. I know everybody's like, oh my god, they're dead. I do think James is dead. He's probably dead. If he went to this group of people due to circumstances, I get it. But I honestly think that the whole car accident was simply so the doppelganger could go back to Mr. Smith, because if they're dead, there's no reason for them to be in Louisiana, which gives them a way to leave Louisiana and not be suspected, basically. And overall, don't hate me, I'm enjoying this so much more than the Sarah J. Maas book. And I think the reason why is because this takes place in an actual place that exists. Whereas this is just a bunch of made up bullshit that you have to explain and do a whole bunch of world building with that's just any fantasy book. So this feels very slow to read. Overall, First Light Winds is sitting at 5 stars. Currently, Crescent City is sitting at about 3 stars, 3.5. Hopefully it gets better, it gets more action packed. I was told it was like a murder mystery, and I'm like, that's not what I signed up for. Fairies, angels, demons, action, fighting, stuff like that, but who knows? Maybe it gets better. I don't know. And that is it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.